Hey, happy Friday, everyone. It's a lovely cold day here in California. Be sure to let me know where you're watching from. Don't be shy. Say hi in live chat. I see a few of you out there already. Today's topics, we'll be talking about mobile SEO and SEO. That's ASAO. App Store Optimization. We haven't talked about that here. So I'm curious on how that works. Our special guest today is Cindy Crum of Mobile Moxie. Don't forget to visit today's sponsor, hrefs.com/AWT. Kobe, what's up? Hello from everyone from Kelly. Adrian, what's up, my man? Hey, Dre, happy Friday, everyone. Stefan, hi, everyone. Happy Friday. Hey, Stefan, did you ever get the SEO in 2023 book? I sent you it via Amazon as a Kindle version. Let me know. Hannah says, hi, Cindy. We're still waiting for Cindy to join in the back. Until then, Stefan says, it's rainy here in Chisinau? I hope I'm saying that right. No snow here so far this year. Victor McGrath, happy Friday. Today's topics, we'll be talking about mobile SEO and ASO, which is App Store Optimization. I've never had an App Store Optimization person on, so this is going to be interesting for those that got apps. Today's guest is Cindy Crum of Mobile Moxie. Today's sponsors, hrefs.com/AWT. If you want a copy of this book, the SEO in 23 book, if you're in the US, put I love SEO in the live chat and send me an email at dre@seo.video. Kishino. There we go. Thank you, Adrian. We got about 5 minutes to go. We're still waiting for our special guest to join in the back. Today we'll be talking about mobile SEO and ASAO, App Store Optimization, for those that got apps. We'll also be, if you got some time, we'll talk about her contribution to the SEO in 2023 book. It's like double the size from last year. There's like, I believe, 101 SEOs in this one. So if you're in the US, shoot me an email, dre@seo.video. Stefan, Adrian, I don't know if I sent you one, Adrian, but I know I was planning on it. But I know you guys are not in the US, so I was going to send you Kindle versions. Stefan, I know I sent you one already. Let me know if you didn't get it or if you have to use a VPN to claim it. Adrian, I think I may have the wrong emails. Can you email me, Adrian? dre@seo.video, and I'll send you a copy of the SEO in 2020 book. Cindy's in the back. Hello, Cindy. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you just fine. Look good, sound good. So right now I'm gonna go over. We just got about 4 more minutes to go. Just greeting everyone coming in the live chat. And I'll introduce you in about maybe 8 minutes after 12 my time. I'm gonna go ahead and share some videos, and then I'll introduce you in.
Sounds good.
Did you get my updated version of the calendar invite? I kind of added some questions and topics in there.
Yep, I did.
Okay, cool. All right, guys, we got Cindy in the back. We'll be talking about mobile SEO, ASAO. For those that don't know what ASAO is, it's App Store Optimization. We never had an ASAO person on here, so that'll be interesting. Today's special guest is Cindy Crum of Mobile Moxie. Today's sponsor is hrefs.com/AWT. Don't be shy, guys. I see a bunch of you out there in the live chat. There you guys are. Stefan, it's not an issue as I got the book on the launch. Hey. Oh, it cannot be redeemed by customers in your country? Huh. All right, maybe I'll reach out to the Majestic team and David Bain to see what's going on there. Next time. Fletcher, what's up, Dre? Lucy says, hey, Dre and Cindy. Ernesto, yo. Okay, guys, we've got about 2 more minutes to go. Be sure to get your shouts out. Say hi in the live chat. Let me know where you're watching from. Be sure to get all your mobile SEO, ASAO questions ready. Maddox, hello everyone from Florida. Hobby, a VPN did not help you too? Oh Jesus, I'll get you guys somehow. You guys got the Hrefs gift, right? If you haven't received the Hrefs gift yet, let me know. Send me an email at dre@seo.video. Today's topics, we'll be talking about mobile SEO and ASAO. For those that don't know, ASAO stands for App Store Optimization. With a very special guest today, Cindy Crum of Mobile Moxie.
It's just it's just ASO. That's how you say it.
ASO.
Yeah.
ASO. I'm saying ASEO. ASO. All right, guys. All right, we got about a little 30 more minutes to go. We'll get. I'm gonna go ahead and get things ready here. Be sure to say hi in the live chat when you join, and I'll see you on the other side.
Hey, time to get it started, no delay, let's work. Wanna see you be an SEO expert. Paul Andre De Vera, steady dropping knowledge. Over 15 years in the game, so he knows all about it. Master the art of SEO, you will be amazed. Time to get your brand off page to on page. Dropping knowledge, legendary for sure. Whether you're just getting started or self-employed entrepreneur. Yeah, let's go. Subscribe to the SEO video show.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the SEO video show. SEO is alive and fun. My name is Paul Andre De Vera, aka Dre, and I curate SEO videos released in the past week into about 1-minute clips. My favorite part of the show is when I get to introduce my guest, and my guest today is the founder of Mobile Moxie, Cindy Crum. Before we get started, let's say what's up to everyone in chat. I see Cindy, Hobby, Maddox, Stefan, Fletcher, Lucy, Ernesto, and Adrian. Welcome. Thank you very much. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Now let's get on with the show.
This is Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man. Why are SEOs good at game shows? They know how to get quick answers.
EAT gets an extra E for experience. This is to better access Google's results of EAT is gaining of E, which means experience. So that's where it's pronounced like double EAT now. There's lots of debate going on what's going on there, but meaning it does not, meaning content also demonstrates that was produced with some degree of experience, such as with the actual use of the product. Having actually visited a place or communicating with a person or is exactly what the experience is about. There are some situations where really what you value most is content produced by someone who is also firsthand life experience and topic at hand. All right. A ton of other updates were done on the Google Search Central, so be sure to check out. I added the link in the link below. There's some stuff on spam updates. There's some learning video, structured data, a lot of good stuff out there, so be sure to check the link below. Okay. Let's go into Clint Butler shares his insights on submitting multiple times on Google Search Central. Let's check it out.
I mean, if you're just adding a couple keywords, then go ahead. You're fine submitting it. I think it might get you in trouble, and this is might because there's no actual proof of that, because I'm not a Google engineer. But if you do one, let's say you add a couple of keywords, submit it, and then you could go, oh, I forgot something else, then go submit it. You're fine. But if you're doing that like 3, 4, 5, 10 times, I think that what happens is you actually reset where that URL is in the queue versus getting it crawled multiple times. You know what I mean? So if I add schema, go submit it, then do Cora and then go submit it again, and then do something else, add an image and go submit it again. I think what it's good doing, if they're smart, is that every time I resubmit it, it puts it back at the bottom of the queue, and it'll go and cycle through just one time. So there are limits to that tool. Like you're only allowed to submit, I think it was 50 a day manually, and then you can do 200 using the Google Indexing API. So I mean, in so much as if you want to use all 200 of your submissions for one URL, then I guess knock yourself out.
Be sure to use other methods of recrawling your pages, like updating and pinging your sitemap or adding internal links to pages that get crawled often from the Google bots. Okay, there's been a ton of talk on the topic of GPT. Ryan Stewart shares his thoughts on ChatGPT to write on writing content. Let's check it out.
Best roofs, or do I need hurricane windows in Florida, doesn't require you to be a thought leader. When I say thought leader, that means opinion. That means having a thesis, a unique point of view on a topic that will help you stand out from the competitors. So when it comes to selling something like windows, you don't necessarily need to be a thought leader for this type of content. You just need that content on your website. But when it comes to something like local SEO for law firms, you do want to be seen as a thought leader. So you don't want to just crank out generic content using AI tools. That's not going to help you as a business to position yourself as a thought leader. And that's where I draw the line, right? I think using AI writers and automating this entire process for generic boilerplate content is great. It's fine. I think it's actually ready to go right now. You just need to cue that at the end. But for anything deep B2B, where you really need to position yourself as a thought leader, somebody whose voice understands how to solve problems of the target customer, again, especially if you're like an agency or consultant, I would stay far away from using these types of tools. You can use it to do some research, to dive into subparts of the article that you want to write. I think ChatGPT is a really good tool for that, but I would not use it to write the entire article just yet. However, what this really has opened my eyes to is that we are getting to the point, I would say over the next 12 to 24 months, where this technology is really going to start to heat up. I think the next version of ChatGPT is really going to blow our hair back.
I have not yet used AI tools to write content, but Ryan's method on that's a great idea to help you write outlines, content outlines, which is great. I mean, I just hire great writers that actually will research and use the products itself. With the double E in EAT, I feel this is even more important now than ever. Okay, creating content that earns backlinks was the talk on Crawling Mondays this past week. Let's check this one out.
I personally love BuzzSumo's content analyzer. I've been blathering on about this for years. I have no affiliation to BuzzSumo. I just think it's a really great tool. So it allows you to find the most shared articles on any topic, any site, any section of a site. Plus you can do site or site section plus topic searches. And I've just over the years just found it incredibly useful. So when I say I start with the publications I want coverage on, often I start on BuzzSumo by doing searches on the publications I want coverage on. But also, I mean, like, so BuzzSumo is a paid for tool. If you can't have access to that, equally useful, I think, is just good old Google searches, Google News searches. There's a bunch of newsletters, which I love. So Iona Tansey does an excellent newsletter called The Grapevine, where she just shares all of the campaigns that she's found in any given month. And it's just excellent. Mark Porter's been doing a newsletter called Content Curated for a few years now. Also really love that.
My favorite strategy of earning links is still producing content with first-party data. I mean, it's a great way. I'm going to check out BuzzSumo, though, because I have not checked out BuzzSumo yet. So using first-party data can also establish your expertise within any industry. All right, let's go to our last video today. Our last video is by Ted Kabitis, and someone asked, does an age domain matter in SEO? Let's check this one out.
Google treats them no differently than a brand new domain. The fact that they were registered in the 90s does absolutely nothing. Now, there is an age that matters, which is how long has it been indexed as a website in Google's system. So the important age you get out of the Wayback Machine for how long has Google known about it. That age is more telling. And you can see how the domain was used and whether it was doing things that would cause it to be scorched earth, in which case it will probably never rank again. And so you want to check for that, because I've seen people buy scorched earth at auction and pay a premium for it. And so you don't want to do that, because you'll never get your money out unless you want to scam some other sucker too and continue the life cycle. And then the next thing you want to look at is, are there backlinks out in the wild still for this domain? So you can use the link operator. You can use quoted search on the URLs. You could do quoted search on the domain. There's a number of ways that if you can find enough examples out in the wild that still reference this domain, then you know it's got something to offer you.
Whenever I find a domain, I go on expireddomains.net. I mean, I build a site right away, quickly, to get the pages indexed and make some authority for future use. Okay, that was today's last video for today, and this brings me to my favorite part of the show. Please ask questions on topic, and I'll address them in the order that they receive. But before we introduce our guests, here's a word from our sponsor. Are you sick of your competitors outranking you in the search results? Your solution is Ahrefs Webmaster Tools, and it's free $99. This isn't one of your 14-day free trial offers. Instead, it's a super powerful tool that'll do a full website audit for you and keep working for you for free. It'll scan your site and prioritize precisely what you need to fix and improve for your search results. Visit ahrefs.com webmaster-tools for this free tool. Find the link below, and by checking our sponsors, you support this show. Now let's introduce our guest. Cindy has brought fresh and creative ideas about SEO and ASO since 2005. She regularly speaks at national and international trade events. She launched the first mobile-focused SEO toolset in 2022. She has been named one of the top 10 influential SEOs by US Today. Many respected have quoted her, including PC World, Internet Retailer, Tech World, Direct Magazine, and Search Marketing Standard. She is the author of Mobile Marketing. Find your customers no matter where they are. Please welcome the founder of Mobile Moxie, Cindy Krum. Cindy, welcome to the show.
How are you?
Good.
Thanks for the awesome introduction. I think that's the most enthusiasm I've ever gotten in an introduction.
Everyone, let's give Cindy a round of applause. All right. So I'm going to get right into it. I mean, this is the question I ask all my SEO professionals that come on board. In 1 minute or less, how does Cindy get ranking on page 1 of Google?
You gotta have the best unique content, best is obviously critical, and then unique is obviously critical, and it's becoming more critical. So you want to write something that people actually would want to read, not write for bots, and you want to make it say something that's not being said everywhere else on the internet, but still have, the right cluster of keywords around it, the right topics, the right topical authority, and of course the right links. And that's the best way. But that's if you're trying to rank a web page. I think a lot of the time it's easier to rank other things. Ranking videos tends to be easier than ranking pages on a site. Ranking images or ranking FAQ can be easier than ranking a page on a site. So I say don't always get in the long line, sometimes get in the short line, and rank those things that are easier to rank.
Love that. Love that. Hold on. Let's go ahead and rewind this real quick. Cindy, take us way back to 2005. How did you first get into SEO?
A long time ago, one of my first jobs was building websites, and this is like really, really long time ago. We were building in a tool called Front Page, and it was by Microsoft, and it worked just like Microsoft Word and Excel, and you used like basically Excel tables to slice and dice images and make them into horribly clunky web pages.
Love it, love it. I do remember Front Page. I mean, I was more of a Macromedia Dreamweaver guy, so I was using that.
Oh yeah, that was next. That was the evolution.
Love it, love it. Okay, so that's how you first got into SEO. So, I mean, what made you so interested in SEO?
Well, I have a degree in marketing and a degree in art, and so building, websites to bring those two things together seemed like a good fit, but then I realized design was kind of a pain because you have to deal with people who can't make up their mind, and having a beautiful site doesn't matter if no one's seeing it. So I realized that we had to get ranking more than anything. So I started reading at the time Jill Whalen's like Wednesday newsletter about SEO, and it was about SEO and PPC at this time because they were often done by the same people, and started worshiping at the altar of SEO.
Love that, love that. And I think even till to this day, for those that have been doing SEO for so long, do manage like paid search, it's like SEO, SEM manager, stuff like that. So I'm curious, how did you learn it? I mean, you said you had this newsletter, but what other ways that you were learning SEO back then?
It was a lot of reading the newsletters, reading some websites. A guy named Todd Malcote had a great website, Stunt Devil, and I read a lot of that. And then SEO Moz came along, and we were reading the SEO Moz stuff. And a couple other people were just really prolific and giving away great information for free. And then I started going to events and learning a lot there. So yeah, it was just learning and paying attention.
Love that, love that. So take us to the journey of like when you started your first company and how it evolved to like Mobile Moxie.
Yeah, so I had 2 jobs in web and SEO before then, and I left a job where I was just in SEO because I wanted to write a book, and I wanted to focus on mobile SEO because I saw it as a huge opportunity, even when no one else did. It just seemed like it was going to grow, and so I started investigating it, and no one was writing about mobile SEO, and I was even this is back in 2008, I was tired of reading the same articles about how to write great title tags and meta descriptions for SEO, and it just seemed like everyone was already rehashing the same topics over and over, so I wanted to write something new. So I had just gotten a new phone, started playing with the search on the phone. It was, I think my first smartphone was called an MDA, and it was kind of like a slider situation, and it had a very like crippled black and white internet situation. But I would do searches and saw that the results were very bad, and so started reading mobile development blogs to understand what were mobile developers doing and why was it not working for Google in the same way that regular websites worked, and then just started writing about that.
Love that, love that. Okay, so then how did Mobile Moxie come about? Like when you developed that company? Because I know it was named something else prior to Mobile Moxie.
Oh yeah, I had owned a domain that was called Rank Mobile, and that was just because I liked the literalness of having the keywords, but I couldn't get it without the hyphen. And of course, rank, can mean rankings, but it can also mean smell. So I only kept that around for a little while until I got the guts, like, to buy Mobile Moxie and go with it. Actually, my mom hated the name, and she was like, "There's nothing wrong with Rank Mobile, just keep it." But I just felt like it wasn't. I didn't want it to be. I didn't want to drag that name around, and I thought Mobile Moxie was so much cooler. So it was just a rebrand.
Love that. Love that. Okay, so I mean, I want to go into like, what can you go deeper into like mobile SEO? So I mean, what is mobile SEO for those that don't know what it is? I mean, is it totally different than like desktop SEO? Like, what are the difference between what are you seeing and what is mobile SEO?
Yeah, at one time it was different, but it's never been totally different. A lot of the same theories and concepts apply, but it's changed over the years as Google's changed their recommendations. So early in SEO or mobile SEO, people were still buying entirely separate domains like .mobies. And I got up on a stage and said, hey, that's not a good idea from an SEO perspective. You're going to have an easier time if you do it this way. And I started describing style sheets, cascading style sheets and responsive design before it was called responsive design. I was like, you can actually use one style sheet to like make the same content work on that page on mobile and desktop. And that became responsive design. Not that I invented it, but I was talking about it as a thing before it became the standard, because after .mobies, people were building mobile subdomains and subdirectories, and they still thought we had to have separate pages. And then Google changed their recommendation and said, no, responsive is the way to go. So I, being a mobile SEO at that time, was doing a lot of massive migrations, helping sites migrate their M.dot subdomains or their mobile subdirectories to become responsive. And before that, when Google's recommendation was to have the separate page because it was faster, then it was this thing called bidirectional annotation, where you link the desktop version of a page to a mobile version of the page. And there was a lot of technical stuff, because there were a lot of technical workarounds that people were doing to make stuff work well as seamlessly as possible on mobile. So it was very, very technical. Now it's a lot about getting the click, because it's much harder to get a click from a search result in a mobile query than on a desktop, because there's so much more below the fold, and because searchers are easily distracted by colors in motion, like babies, like they're distracted like by interactivity and by expanders. And so all the stuff that Google is stacking at the top, like knowledge graph or even PPC ads with icons or little carousels, whatever, that pulls people in when they're on a phone more so than it does when they're on desktop, because on desktop people can see more, and so they can be like, oh, that's what I want, and they're less likely to get distracted. But when you can't even see that what you want is there, and you see all this interactivity and color and stuff, you're more likely to get lost, get sucked in, not scroll down further. And so that's why, we have such a big concern about zero-click search results, because, if you're an SEO, the first thing is to have the site and then to rank it. But if you rank it and you don't get the click, what does it matter? And so it's about getting the search result to look interesting near your query, and getting above the stuff that's distracting people, like people also ask and whatever, getting above that, or at least knowing when it's there, and being the most compelling looking result, as well as just being there.
Love that. A lot to unpack there, but you mentioned this a few times, like getting that click. So what is something different that we can do to get that click on mobile? What are some tips to get that click on a mobile device?
So on mobile, it's a lot more about making sure that you've got things like schema, images, star rankings, everything that you can to come through in the search result. That's what you want. It's kind of like what is it, the bling from Office Space, or no, flare. You want flare on your listing. You want all the flare, and that's how you get the attention. You've got to show that you're there for the flair.
Excellent.
I like Bling. I think Bling works too there. All right. So let's go into some of these mobile factors then. I want to go into we kind of talked about the difference between mobile and desktop, but I mean, what are are the factors the same? Like, ranking factors the same as a desktop or mobile? What are some different factors that you can differentiate for us?
Well, for the most part, Google is and has been crawling websites as a mobile device for a long time. And so if you have content that's on desktop but not mobile, then the likelihood of you ranking on desktop and mobile is lower. Google might catch the desktop only stuff, but they might not. And so that's one thing to look at. And then looking at how does mobile rendering happen? And if you're doing a lot of selective serving or sending things from a dynamic page serving server that's like, oh, we should send this and this and this, you need to know what's actually being sent and served and what's actually being rendered, and ideally know what's rendered in the first pass and second pass of indexing, because we know Google now has the two-phase indexing, and the first one is more traditional, like text only, no JavaScript execution. The second one is JavaScript, includes JavaScript execution. And so if you're using JavaScript to modify the page, like let's say you're using Tag Manager to inject your hreflang, that means it's there in the second phase, but maybe not the first phase, and that could sometimes cause problems. It's better than not having it, but knowing, what's showing up when and what's causing problems. There are other things that can happen where if a page takes too long to load, less JavaScript gets executed, or the bot doesn't get as far, or the CSS doesn't get fully executed. So it can be not just about optimizing load time, but optimizing rendering specifically and knowing what is Google getting and what are they not.
Love that. So, you've actually developed some tools around mobile SEO, right? This is something you've actually given away. Can you explain some of these tools that you developed for us to help us get started in mobile SEO?
Yeah. So what I've found is that the biggest problem with mobile SEO especially is that SEOs are still paying way too much attention to desktop because most of the tools focus on desktop still. It's mind-blowing because most websites' traffic is more than 50% mobile, but most of the tools and most of the SEOs still look at desktop because it's where they have data. And so that's unfortunate. So we developed a special mobile-focused tool set. And what I saw happening with my consulting clients is that bosses would come in, CEOs would come in with their phone and be like, when did this happen? And the SEOs would sweat, and they're like, I don't know, because they've been looking at desktop results. And also sometimes it's stuff that's really hard to quantify or qualify as to what's happening in a mobile search result. Like if a knowledge graph shows up, and people don't know this, but sometimes knowledge graph can show up in mobile but not desktop, or vice versa, or of course maps show up a little bit more in mobile than desktop, or whatever. It's not always the same, especially with the SERP features. Rankings can change too between mobile and desktop, and so I saw too many SEOs banking that mobile was exactly the same as desktop when it's definitely not. They're all stacked and things are pushed, and just different things appear, and sometimes in a different order. So we created two tools, the Serperator and the Pagescope, and they have a live testing view and then a overtime capture view, because we wanted to be able to answer real questions about when did this happen, and then answer why. And so now we can see how has the search result changed over time on a mobile device at a specific location, and even with a specific language setting. And so we can go back and say, this is what it looked like 5 weeks ago, this is what it looks like 2 months ago, or and compare side by side and say, oh, well, it looked like there were a bunch of ads happening, and then this knowledge graph, and then the knowledge graph went away, and and so knowing when that stuff's there versus when it's not can tell you, not only you can see not just your traditional SEO ranking, but you can see your actual ranking where we count everything. And you can see pixels from the top. And so you can see, is first position or is our position getting pushed pixel wise down, down, down? And is that why clicks are going down, even though technically we have the same position? And then we also do that same thing for pages. So like when I talked about dynamically serving pages, we can capture the look of the page as well as the page code and keep that over time and compare it. So like if you ignore this site for 2 months and then you go look and it's fallen off a cliff and you're like, oh my God, what happened? You could go look at the search result and see, did something come in and take the traffic away, like a big knowledge graph or map pack? Or you could go look at the code and be like, oh, well, that just happened to be the day we lost our schema, or that just happened to be the day that this got taken out of the page. Maybe that's why. So it's really great for like reality checking your SEO efforts and your SEO data. Because the other thing that most SEOs don't realize is like most of the tools are using an API given to them directly from Google to give the ranking data. It's not the Search Console API. Like they have a ranking API that they let tools use, but they intentionally muck that up so that you can't reverse engineer things. So we actually show real results where it's like, it's not, you're not saying, well, you're not having to make up stuff to your boss going, well, it's directional and, it's not always going to be the same and da, da, da. Like we have the real result. It's not like US wide, right? Because like the center of US is Kansas. That's not helpful in most cases, unless you're in Kansas, like it's a specific result and that actually happened, versus using this API that, might be intentionally messed up and might be intentionally misleading. So I like real results and I like the real picture of what happened. So I could be like more confident when I'm saying, well, this is what happened. It went from looking like this to looking like this.
Love that. So are you taking snapshots of actual crawls, or since you said you're not using Google APIs, is it different? Are you just pulling something straight from the Google Search Console? What's I'm curious about this difference between the different APIs that Google gives out to companies between what's out there, what you do.
Yeah, so what we do is we capture the full length visual of a search result, and we parse it. And not just, so it's not just pulling Search Console and it's not just pulling the API. We actually screenshot the whole length of the search result and we parse that. So we know when there are ads and where the ads go, and we know, things like what % of this search result is taken up by ads, what % of this search result is taken up by people also ask. So yeah, it's kind of evaluating the screenshots basically.
Love that. Okay, so I'm curious, when it comes to mobile SEO, you think of like regions and stuff like that, or like even certain markets of like, which like certain markets or like companies, the type of companies should be paying attention more to mobile SEO than, just normal SEO?
It's a lot more about industry and what you're selling, but anymore it's even hard to say that. We used to say that if you're in something that's a low risk, low cost industry, then you're more likely to get mobile traffic, or you're at least more likely to get mobile conversions, because in the early days of mobile, people were just kind of too scared and they would do the serious things on the serious computer and just do like frivolous things on the phone. But that's not true anymore. Now people even are using their phone to research the cars and houses that they're going to buy. In fact, even more so, like with houses, like that's what they do, is like people in the housing market trying to buy a house, and real estate people are just locked into their phone. So it's not just small purchases anymore. There are places where, desktop technology almost completely skipped the generation where desktops and wired connections were too expensive. So many places throughout Africa and more developing nations, they skipped wired computers and went straight to phones and tablets. But it's also generational. There are a lot of the younger generations are much more comfortable doing many things on phones and will avoid computers and avoid email. And so it really just depends on what you're selling anymore, because I wouldn't tell anyone, even people in housing markets, they're selling houses. Like that's a huge part of it. And it's usually the biggest purchases you're going to make in your life. So yeah, it's not necessarily regional. If anything, it's by vertical. But even that, people are heavily on mobile now.
Love that. Because I want let's break this down. Like if you can break up some tips on how the basics of mobile SEO, what we should do, from architecture, user experience, on page, what would be something that we should do with the architecture? And you mentioned CSS. What do you think? Is AMP even still a thing nowadays? Or is this? Should we pay attention to that? What can we do with our architecture?
Yeah, so AMP still sort of exists, even though you don't get the lightning bolt. What I've said for years about AMP is that it is the fastest code built by some of the best Google engineers out there. And so if you can use AMP code instead of regular code that you wrote, you should, because you don't have to be AMP valid to use AMP code. So why would you not use the fastest, most efficient code out there? Just pick and choose, like you're making a salad, and be like, here's some AMP code and it's probably faster than what I wrote. And here's some of this, I like that one too. And use it where you can, because it's gonna give you speed benefits, and speed benefits straight to conversion. It has an SEO benefit, but more importantly, it has a conversion benefit. Load time is really just a tiebreaker in SEO. If you're at the same level as your competitor and you're faster, then you can win. So that's great, but it's way better. Even if you're one position down in SEO, if you're getting the traffic and you're converting more traffic, that's where the rubber meets the road. You want the money. The being in that position versus this position, you might think it's a feather in your cap, but your bosses just care about the bottom line.
Love it. Okay, so let's go into more of the user experience. So you talked about faster loading. Is there any other things that we should pay attention to for user experiences for mobile SEO?
Yeah, you want it to be fast loading. You want it to be responsive and work on all different phone sizes. You want to have basically the same content with the same links and navigation that you would on a desktop situation. You don't want to show one thing to desktop and a totally different thing to mobile, although you can optimize and send faster, more compressed versions of images or whatever. You can do stuff like that in the cloud. I think the future of all SEO is going to be edge SEO, and that's going to be more dynamic serving of stuff from the server to the device based on what's optimized for that specific situation, the connection speed, the phone, whatever. But I also think that the future of SEO is going to be a lot more efficiency on Google's part. Okay. So meaning Google wants to be efficient, and for years they've told us not to retire pages, and now they're probably regretting that because the web just keeps growing and growing at an exponential rate, and now they have to crawl it and decide what's good. And there's so much muck and bad stuff, and now with all of the GPT AI systems, that's going to even make it so much worse, right? Because think about how much low quality content's been created in the past 5 years, and know that now we don't even have to pay humans to do it. And they can AI systems work through the night without vacations or sleep. And so I think Google's going to have a big problem on their hands in terms of crawling and finding new content efficiently. And I think it's going to be more about feeds, kind of like we've seen a much bigger emphasis on Merchant Center for products. Google's really threatened by Amazon, and so pushing harder on Merchant Center gives them the opportunity to undercut anything from Amazon by floating it to the top of a search result where Amazon might rank, or showing the free product listings that used to be just available to paid, and now they show up as free. They also show up in images. You can shop via images, just scrolling and clicking through to products. I think that we're being teed up for some major changes. And if we're not, then Google's going to be chasing their tail to deal with all this AI stuff. one thing I mentioned, and I mentioned it actually last spring for the first time, is I have a feeling that Google's going to have to do something like introduce some kind of new protocol. If you remember with mobile friendliness, they introduced this idea of you had to make your style sheet in JavaScript crawlable when previously most SEOs had blocked them. And that was so they could check for spam and actually do the rendering on the page to understand what was happening and understand how things look. And I think that we're going to have some kind of new requirement. And it was like switching to HTTPS 2. I think we're going to get to what I think might happen next is a requirement for something like a security.txt that's something that already exists, or it's being discussed. And if they had something like that also somehow made it harder for companies that were doing AI generated content to get that, or even just knowing that those companies probably aren't paying attention to the latest and the greatest Google, guidelines, just as something to make their life a little bit easier in crawling and indexing and avoiding better and better AI content. And I think one more thing that they're going to be up against with that is doing a better job not surfacing. It's the same thing, but in video format, deep fakes and stuff. That's going to be a super hard challenge.
Love it. A lot to unpack there. I mean, so you actually kind of talked about also, like prior to that, you were talking about like real estate. And so we had a question here from Raphael asking if I don't know if you have any real estate clients, but what are some best tips for converting visitors into leads for real estate? Is this something, is that an industry you work with?
Not recently, but there are a lot of things that do work, especially in situations like that. What I say, especially for the big purchases, is that you're going to have a better conversion rate if you give people as much information as you can, help them with buttons that allow them to save it, screenshot it, share it, and give them bailout options. So if, like, let's say they're looking at a house and they're just frustrated because the site might not be working on their particular phone. Like, what if it's my mom and she's like made the font on her phone enormous so she doesn't have to pull out her readers? Like, that will mess up a site. And so, like, or it could, right? It definitely happens. So give bailout options to handle things that are unforeseen or that you haven't tested for. So like a big button that says, call and talk to someone about this house right now, or email myself this listing so I can look at it later, or those kinds of things where you're thinking, how would someone who's frustrated or about to walk into a meeting or having technical difficulties deal with this without losing the sale?
Love that.
People aren't going to buy the house.
Love that. So I'm actually curious. You actually brought up something that's very interesting, because I mean, I actually have, like, my font size is not the normal size too. I kind of like make it a little bit bigger. I mean, like, so how? I mean, are sites adjusting to that too? I mean, is there like the CSS adjusts to like the bigger font sizes? I mean, how does that work? Do you know?
Yeah, there are ways to handle fonts that are called EMs, and they've actually existed for a long time. Putting EM is a relative font size. So you have, it's kind of like heading tags, but it's EMs. And so you'll have EM level 1, 2, and 3, and 4. And that's a relative font size. So EM1 is the biggest, and EM, I don't know how deep they go. Let's call it 4, but it might be 6, is going to be smaller. And so it's just going to make it as big as possible within the rendering situation on the device that you're on. So if you have hard-coded on your phone that you need XYZ pixel height, that could still break things, but it's going to try and accommodate. So the browsers are doing actually a lot more work to make stuff like that fluid and useful across different devices.
Love that. Okay, I want to get into, before we I want to get into the ASA. I was going to say ASAO again. I don't know why I keep saying that. So, I mean, there's also something in mobile called ASO, and something that you provide, also for clients. I mean, can you talk about like what ASO is?
So just think app search optimization. That's what it stands for, App Search Optimization. We dropped the engine because it's implied. You don't need it. So App Search Optimization. So we're making sure the apps rank where they should. And that includes in the stores, so in the Google Play Store and the iTunes App Store, that they're getting the right level of traffic for the right keywords, and that they're in the right categories if people are browsing. And the bigger thing that we do that's more unique, because there are ASO companies that do that too. We also have tools for that, and we look at it internationally because it can be very beneficial to launch an app internationally. So we can see, oh, well, we lost rankings in the US, but in Australia, we didn't, or the competitive scenario in this country is much easier to rank, and the app works just as well there as it does here. So let's push there because we have way fewer competitors and can make the same money. So we look at that, and then we also look at what are called app packs. So app packs are kind of like a map pack.
Okay.
In that it's something that will rank, especially in a mobile search result. They don't rank on desktop. But what will happen is if you search for something that's kind of reliably got content like kids apps or run tracker, those are going to bring up a list of apps that are specific to your operating system that will work on your phone. So for instance, if you're on an iPhone and you search for run tracker, you're going to get one list of apps, versus if you're on an Android phone, you're going to get potentially a slightly different list of apps. And that's because there are different apps available for the different operating systems. There's two stores, and they're not necessarily, you don't install an iOS app on an Android device or vice versa. So there's two lists to choose from, and Google will choose the ones that will work on the phone that you're searching from. And Google has its own algorithm that's separate from the App Store algorithm, and it's separate from even the Google Play algorithm for ranking apps in app packs. It takes those things into consideration, but it also looks at other things, star ratings and stuff like that. And so that can be, now more and more people are starting their search for an app in Google rather than in their App Store, especially if they're not sure which app they want. Most app queries, a high percent, are branded. People already know what they're wanting to download. They're not browsing, but if they are browsing, or if they're not sure, they'll start in Google and be like, top Android run trackers, or top Android kids app, or top iOS TV app. And so they'll look for lists, or if the app pack shows up, they'll take that as basically a Google recommendation that Google says like, oh, well, this is the top iOS kids app, or this is the top Android TV app. And so they'll just click it and download it. So ranking there can be huge because it kind of bypasses the horrible, less sophisticated search engines in the app stores, and can drive lots of traffic. Yeah, so help with that too.
Love that. Okay, so what are some tips that we can make sure that we kind of have our app show up in the actual search? There's certain things that we can do. Is there schema that we should implement if we want to have our app show up in actual Google searches?
Yeah, so it's not necessarily about schema, because what you're doing is you're optimizing a listing on another site. You're optimizing your listing in the App Store or in Google Play. And so they have their own different algorithms. They're slightly different, but both of them use a combination of static app ranking factors. So that's things like the title, the subtitle or short title, the long description. Long description is more for Android than iOS, but that's like text. And then the category, and then there's dynamic ranking factors, and these are things like download volume and velocity, reviews and star rankings, and uninstalls, technical things like ANR, which is like an app crash, app not responsive. So if you're crashy, if you're buggy, if you're getting bad star ratings, that's going to make it harder to rank. Whereas if you're in high demand, you're promoting your app and getting lots of download volume and velocity. Like you're sending out emails, you're reminding people to update their app, you're promoting it with your existing web users. That's all going to help. And especially if you're getting good star ratings and you've got the right keywords in the right places.
Love that. Okay, we're coming close to time here. I wanted to make sure if anyone in the audience has any question, please ask them, and please keep them on topic, and I'll bring them up. But for my last question that I ask all my SEO professionals that come on here, I mean, if someone wants to get into the SEO game, become an SEO professional, what would be your advice to them?
Someone's new?
Yeah, someone that wants to become an SEO professional, wants to get into the SEO game, what can they do to be successful?
I would say think like a business owner and think like a consumer. Be able to shift gears and think about, like, let's say if you're going into consulting or you're working with an agency and you have customers, think like your customer and understand like what they probably want most is to make money. What they want next is to not look stupid and to understand. And what they want after that is to feel like there's a holistic and reliable strategy that's going to protect them and keep them safe from this wild and crazy series of Google changes that we've experienced in the past year. And so that means doing things that are active, but also defensively posturing the site, making sure you're not taking unnecessary risks, and making sure you're following all the rules, making sure you see if you do anything that might be risky, or if someone did before you, that you've called it out so you don't get blamed for it, and that you're doing everything you can to mitigate that, fix it, whatever. And I always say, especially for agency owners and stuff like that, document that work. That's another way that people use our tools to get that screen capture, is that we can do the screen capture on the page and say, this is what the code looked like. You can see it went live this day. That way, if your customer's like, well, you haven't done anything, what have you done? And you're like, well, I added schema. They don't see that. They don't look, right? Yeah. So you can go back and see, like, it's right here. See, we added it this day. It's third-party tool. It's just verifying that we did it, you know. And you can say, well, you know, you're getting way more traffic because your ranking used to look like this, just a blue link and some text, and now it looks like this, and there are 5 places to click versus 2. And you're getting traffic not just to this page, but to these other pages that are listed in this great sub, you know, link navigation. And so you can actually make it real instead of just saying, trust us, we're doing a great job.
Love it. Be sure to record all that. Okay, so we got one question here that's came in from Stefan. Hi, Cindy. Do backlinks help with ASO?
So it's an interesting question. We have tried linking to the app stores. And Google used to have a policy that said that if you did something called deep linking from your website to your app to join the connected pages, where it's like if you have a page on your website that is mirrored with a page in your app, you can do some technical stuff to say, hey, Google, this page is equivalent to this page in our app. And if someone has it installed, then if someone has already installed the app, when they click on that from a search result, instead of opening the website, it'll open the app. So the best example on this one for most people is Pinterest. Search for, you know, kids' Christmas outfits and click on a Pinterest thing. If you have Pinterest installed on your phone, it's gonna open Pinterest instead of opening the website. It'll open your app. That's a deep link. Google used to say that helped in rankings, but they've backed off of that communication. I don't know if they've entirely deleted it, but I think I've run it by a Googler and they're like, yeah, I don't think that works anymore. They really that was like the short-term incentive, just like AMP. They wanted a bunch of people to do it, so they're like, it's gonna help your rankings, and then that mysteriously fizzles out eventually. But it does help user experience massively. So I would say do deep link from your app to your website when there are corresponding pages. Linking from your website to the store can help again in a UX and driving downloads way, but those stores already have loads of links and rank really well. So if you link like from your website to your listing in the App Store, that extra link, unless you're a huge site like the New York Times, it's probably not really a drop in their bucket. It's not going to help that much. Maybe linking to your specific app is going to help that particular page come up in Google, but that's not going to drive app pack rankings directly, and it's not going to drive in-store app rankings directly. It would drive traditional blue link Google rankings, and people aren't usually clicking on that to download apps.
Love that. I love it when Google says they don't do it or use it anymore. I mean, that's when you try to use it and keep on doing it. All right, okay. That was the last question in the live in the audience. Cindy, if there's any thing that can make this episode feel complete for you, I mean, how can people get a hold of you? Please, the stage is yours.
Oh yeah, we have those tools. We have free versions of the tools that are available in the App Store, or in the Chrome extension store, whatever they're calling it now. So go download our free extensions. They're called the Serperator and the Pagescope, and you get 10 free tries a day, which is more than anyone usually needs, to test search results in anywhere in the world down to a specific address, or test pages on any phone in a different country, so you can see if you're using geo stuff to change your currency or change sizes or change languages. You can test that in our Pagescope tool, and just make sure everything's working right on mobile. And yeah, have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. Let's give a round of applause. Thank you so much, Cindy. I mean, can you hold on for one quick second while I sign off? Hold on, just really quick. All right, guys, that concludes another episode of this SEO video show. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And I'll see you next week. Peace out.
Thank you for watching. Hope you come back next week. Make sure to subscribe. You don't want to miss a thing. Hope you learn something new, because the vibe is incredible. From the special SEO professionals, SEO video show, let's work. Want to see you be an SEO expert. Paul Andre De Vera helping you step it up. No delay right now. Time to level up. Hey, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe. Woo!